Welcome to Ace of Pentacles, your career strategy and workplace wellness podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, and I'm so happy you're here. Join me every week as we investigate how people design and discover their way through their careers. Together, we'll explore the science of well-being at work and discover tools and strategies to help us do well and be well. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Ace of Pentacles. Today we have Bryan Dahl. From producing award-winning short films and fashion editorials to concert series and marketing campaigns, Bryan has been blessed to work with artists of every talent. As an opera singer, photographer, and writer, he understands where talent and creativity meet practicality and purpose. His work has featured performances at Carnegie Hall, the American Cathedral in Paris, and Chicago's Athenaeum Theater. He currently shoots for Discover magazine and writes for the Epoch Times. Bryan Dahl, welcome to Ace of Pentacles.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, Bryan, you and I have been friends for so long, and I've been so excited about this conversation because I think everything you do is just so cool.
Thank you. I'm flattered you wanted to interview me. I'm sure it's a little bit different. You interview so many different people, so I guess anything's up for grabs.
I think you're unique in my mind because, I say this thing to a lot of my clients. I say this to a lot of people in my life. We have so many lives within us, within this one life. And I think it's through our talents and our gifts that we get to explore what those different lives might look and feel like. And when I think about that, I think about you and how I've seen your career take shape over the past, 15 years that we've known each other. And you're someone who really, really, in my mind, stands out to me as a multi-potentialite, someone who takes his creative energy and pours it into these different buckets. And so I think today actually is the first time I'm going to learn about all of the things that you've done. And I am very much looking forward to that. So you do a lot of things and you have done a lot of things creatively. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your background, your story. How'd you get to where you are today?
I was lucky to get to do a lot of different things growing up. I mean, I took piano lessons growing up. I took painting classes in high school and college. Uh, I I was always jealous of people who knew exactly what they wanted to do. I knew a couple opera singers who they knew at the age of 5, 6 that they wanted to sing. That was it. That was all they ever wanted to do. And I was always jealous to have that kind of, compass in your soul, like how convenient that is. In many ways, I never had that. I never really knew what I wanted to do. I remember the day my mother brought home a video camera, and I knew as a child, that was elementary school, I knew exactly, I want that. I need that. I didn't care about playing with toys anymore unless I was filming them. So, but I didn't know, that I wanted to make films. I wanted to do a lot of things. I thought I was going to go to law school for the first half of high school. But then by the end of high school, I knew I wanted to do something creative. I knew I was going to lose my mind, doing 60 hours a week of law reading. So I went to UC Berkeley as a film studies major. There was no real opportunity to do production. I ended up switching to English, still not knowing what I was going to do with that, but it was open-ended. So I knew it would allow me to go in various different directions. I was never type A at all. I was always very type B, which has proven itself uh, as an advantage and a serious disadvantage too. You must know this quote from Aristotle for psychology and career work. It's something like, to know yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
So, so by the time college was over, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had played a lot more piano and chamber music groups. I had painted more. I had started playing in rock bands. So it was still all over the place. After teaching for several years, I eventually went back to school for music. I remember I crashed a music appreciation class at Valley College in LA, and I just remember for the first time thinking I was so excited to be sitting in a classroom and hearing this professor talk about Beethoven or whatever. It was such a a revolutionary thought. I mean, I loved my classes at Berkeley. I liked English, like literature, but I was never so excited that I was like, oh my God, this is fun to be sitting in a classroom again. And so I knew I wanted to go back to school at that point and to, to do more music. I ended up singing opera just because I had a low voice, and again, did not ever see that on the radar, but it was the one thing in show business that there was not an insane amount of competition for. There were never enough men with low voices in opera. And for me, it was easy. This like, don't, to sound like Darth Vader was easy for me. And apparently this was something that nobody else could do. So I was like, I can do it. And I just kind of stumbled into it. And everything that my teachers had said was true, that I would progress very quickly. I had no idea what I was doing. I ended up, singing in Europe with people who had been singing their whole life because they had always known that was what they wanted to do. And I was like, hi, I'm here, I'm the bass, kind of clueless, but I, I could act well enough and my voice was loud enough that I got away with it. Uh, like more than 10 years later, I still barely feel like I have the basics down in terms of technique. Uh, After grad school, so I went from LA to Chicago uh, to study opera, and I got to sing with some of the best people in the world, people who had huge careers at the Metropolitan Opera, and so it was an amazing opportunity experience. And then the day after my 35th birthday, I was in a fabulous production of the Pirates of Penzance. We were like 3 days away from opening night, and it was the day after my birthday, so I woke up with a little bit of a headache, and I was getting ready to go to rehearsal, and the producer called me and said, can you please bring your cameras to the rehearsal tonight? And I said, why? I was not excited to hear this. Why? What's going on? And she wouldn't tell me. She just said, the director has an idea. Oh, and can you call the lead and ask him to bring his camera too? So what is going on? So I show up to rehearsal and they tell us, this was March 10th of 2020. So that was the day that they let us know that because of COVID, all of the theaters and everything was shutting down, and that was going to be the end of the show. And we had that day to film the last rehearsal like a dress and, make the most of it that we could. So that was the end of opera for several years. And I left Chicago. I came back to San Diego and literally went from being on stage in costumes and running around to tearing out poison oak and fixing the septic tank here. So it was a very dramatic, turnaround, in terms of just having spent, more than a decade going in that direction in life. All of that was gone for the foreseeable future. Even into 2021, I knew producers. I'd done video work for producers who would do massive concerts at Carnegie Hall. And even they said with, the way that things were opening and shutting down again, they just said, we're not planning anything for 2021 because it's so expensive, to plan and program and write contracts. And the idea that everything would shut down again was like, no, we're not going to invest, and, risk that again. So luckily I, had been doing videography and photography as just kind of a hobby. And I put an ad on Craigslist, trying to just find anybody who wanted to collaborate or shoot or do something, since, not much music was going to be happening for the foreseeable future. And luckily, the editor of this magazine in San Diego said, I need somebody to come and shoot pictures at the zoo, at the San Diego Zoo for their like fundraisers, like donors gala. And it's sure, absolutely. It was the first time I'd put on a coat in years by that point. That was in like June of 2021. And it was fabulous. It was wonderful. I asked him some months later after shooting events and fundraisers with him if he wanted to do like fashion editorials, like creative fashion editorials. And so we've since then got to shoot in incredible places here on like the Star of India, the oldest sailing ship in the world, and uh, the Golden Door. It's this like spa that all these celebrities have come to. And so it's been wonderful to, shoot and learn about fashion and photography and doing creative directing and that kind of thing. But complete, starting over, talk about, dual lives, a very double life from being here in the countryside, to being, with, people in Rancho Santa Fe, and very high society, very elegant, very glamorous, and but completely different from opera. So it's kind of come full circle. I know two fabulous sisters here, and they have a company, so I get to sing opera with them still and dance now that things have opened up again. But it's been such a you know an unpredictable pivoting year after year after year that it's I don't know I don't know what's next. It's always pulling all these different things together. And now I'm writing for the Epoch Times historical articles.
Mm.
In the last month, I've written articles about Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and Raphael. So it's fun. It's always fun to get to learn.
Thank you so much for walking us through that. I am so curious of all the things that you listed, all the different changes that you navigated through your career. Was there any one thing that really still calls to you that you're like, that was really cool. I want to still do that?
I still want to do all of them. It's really difficult to Uh, like I played piano for so many years, and now I rarely do that anymore. So that's frustrating to be away from that. I used to get to do more acting. I worked at Disneyland for a brief period of time, as
Yeah.
I worked with. I don't let me kill the magic for you. I worked with Goofy and Captain Hook and all those tall characters. Yeah, that's what I did. And I worked as Santa Claus. I worked in haunted houses, random acting gigs, which were fun. Trying to find yourself, it's amazing because some things you're so drawn to and are so unnatural, and you have to work so hard. Like writing takes me forever, to pull together like hours and days of research into like 1,200 word essay is like pulling teeth for me. It takes so much brain power, to like cram that into something that's not a chore to read and is still like fun and elegant, to piece together. And photography came so easy. It was like instantly I was like, I can do this. This will be fine. And it was always, it was never very difficult to make progress in that.
Bryan, if someone asked you to describe yourself professionally in one or two sentences, what would those be for you right now? And I say right now because I actually think that these are always changing for all of us.
I'm a perfectionist. I will fuss. I will make a scene to get what I want, but I will also take years off my own life to make sure that everything is delivered, by a deadline. So I will go both ways, but it's I hate to be like casual, like, oh yeah, we'll get it done. I will say no. This it needs to be done right. do it do it again. Do it. It's like to the point of being annoying sometimes. I'm doing like shoots, at the beach or like on yachts. Everybody else is in swimsuits and shorts, and I will still be like this, but up cleaning up trash because I don't want to wait for somebody else to do it. So I remember the director of the Athenaeum Theater, he would make jokes and saying like, if you're producing, it means you do all the jobs. And when people would say to him, I'd love to produce a show with you, he would say, okay, I'm going to get you a mop, and a bucket because that's part of it.
Oh yeah, no, Bryan, I know I've worked with you and I'm a little on the opposite end of that where I'm like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, right? And I know that about you. And I actually really, as someone you recorded the first few episodes of my podcast, and I was so appreciative of that because when I saw those, I was like, whoa, this is way better than I even imagined. So thank you. I appreciate that.
It's from having very demanding teachers and directors who, are not afraid to scream at you because, in any kind of competitive field, like it has to be, doesn't always have to be perfect. It has to get done, but it has to be convincing.
When you look at your creative roles, musician, opera singer, photographer, videographer, teacher, writer, what feels to you like it's the common thread? What's the same kind of impulse that's showing up in different forms for you?
I think in anything, doesn't matter what it is, if it's like performing arts or fine arts or teaching, uh, there's two things. There's two decisions that are the most important. One is like the human reaction, whether you're painting or whether you're writing a song or taking a picture. Personally, I don't believe that beauty is subjective or art is subjective. I think if you want to write a song or if you want to make a painting, you should have a goal. Do you want this to make people happy? Do you want this to make people nostalgic? I think you should have a goal. I think there should be, a very specific purpose. I don't think that personally, I don't get anything out of Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko and I honestly nobody ever did. Nobody cared about those guys, when they came on the scene. Nobody was impressed by this. It wasn't until all of a sudden these paintings were selling for $1 million and people were like, "Wait, wow!" And it turns out that they were funded by the CIA. So just for the record, like, nobody cared about that nonsense art. It was propaganda, to promote individuality. No one cared until it was propped up, by not organic means. So like, to answer your question, like that is the most important. If you decide what kind of reaction, if you want to lift people up, you want to challenge people, that is true in anything. And then you just have to understand the structure, whatever it is, the structure of an essay, the structure of a photograph, or the structure of a style. You understand those two things. What is the structure and what is the human emotional reaction? How do you want to drive the human emotions? You can do anything. I think in almost any context, you could replace the word beauty with the word alignment. Like, is that fair?
Mm.
Like, not to be too shallow, but in any context, if something is beautiful, or if you want to make something more beautiful, uh, what do you have to do to make it look more aligned or more in place or more harmonious? Like, I don't know. I've
Mm.
think of a context when you can't, whether you're talking about, something very obvious and physical, or whether you're talking about like, someone's personality or something, abstract. If you make something more harmonious and more aligned with, the world around it, it should be more beautiful.
I mean, hypothetically, Ryan, it should be more beautiful. But okay, now I'm curious and this is totally going away from your your career story, but I'm curious about your thoughts on this. What about like just individuality, like celebrating individuality, celebrating that everything has a unique kind of essence to it?
I would say, a person's individuality or um, person's personality, whatever the qualities are that make that individual. You can say that any kind of quality can be beautiful or can be inspiring or magnetic or repulsive. Right? Like love is always bringing things together, right? Love is always
Yeah.
magnet drawing things together, and fear is always like pulling things apart or repulsing things, right? Almost anything, without being too simplistic, almost anything, any human emotion or any action can be motivated either by fear or love. So I think the more that you do, and the more that anyone can be conscious of doing, based on like love rather than based on fear, I think that is
Hmm.
always an easy way. The more that you're being magnetic and drawing things together, whether it's, you like as an individual, if you're trying to stand out, that's extremely important if you're trying to like lead, but that's about love. That's about magnetic and needing to earn people's respect. If you need to earn people's respect through fear, that's not that's that's less of a beautiful thing.
Okay, that's fair. I get that. All right. Okay, back on track. Brian, how do you decide which creative energy goes into, like I explained earlier, different buckets, right? Are there moments when one medium clearly calls to you louder than another?
I mean, it's good that I get to do multiple things because I am not good with routine. If I have to do anything the same day, day after day after day, I start to like look forward to something else. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and some things come so easily, like acting and photography are so easy. Singing is challenging. Singing is so physically demanding. I never knew if I had known when I started singing opera that it was more athletic than artistic, I might not have done it because it requires so much physical discipline and coordination, just to do it, just to be able to make a sound, and sound good and sing over an orchestra without a microphone. That it's satisfying, but it takes so much work. And writing the same thing. I always look forward to the research. The research is it's so much fun to just go and learn about something. And the writing is the work part. Writing is the blood, sweat, and tears. But
Mm.
So yeah, and it's good to have the balance of, the ease of the photography and the acting with, the really demanding but satisfying work of the writing and singing. So it's good to have both because they're completely opposite.
Yeah. How does one discipline or being engaged in one discipline change, or does it change how you approach another? So, for example, being a photographer, does that affect how you think about music or opera or visual storytelling?
They all absolutely inform each other. I think.
Hmm.
I, I think that's true of most things in life, but again, if you think about like the human reaction that you want to get and the structure, it always works together. Like getting to do so much with opera and ballet now, and getting to do photography. I'm spoiled. The only photography that I really get to do is usually with very elegant, nice, beautiful saris or wedding gowns. And so just having the exposure to the fine arts, ballet and classical music and fashion are all three of them, talking objective beauty, they're all about long, beautiful, elegant lines. That's it. I mean, the Art Nouveau versus Art Deco mentality, like in poetry, in music, and in Givenchy, the way that he would design Audrey Hepburn's dresses, the long, beautiful, flowing line is the universal recipe or the universal language for beauty. And so they really do feed into each other.
Bryan, what do you think? What do you think is the impulse right now of just like collective consciousness, I guess, or like the psyche for people to express beauty in different forms that are not, I guess, the way that you're talking about objective beauty, right? What do you think is happening there collectively?
I I think there's something absolutely toxic in kind of modern culture that has made the beauty something frivolous. Like if you talk about
Mm.
beauty for men, especially men, when men hear the word like beauty, we think of like makeup or it's a, it's treated as like an extra thing, a frivolous thing, not a foundational, fundamental thing. But if you think of what makes something beautiful, or what is the effect of beauty, it's so important that like we should not take it for granted. Like it's so many things now are so ugly. Uh,
Okay, so that I think I understand that, and I agree with that to some extent, because I think what's happened is people, it's like this concept was out there of like, beauty is individuality, and beauty is like, authenticity, and that like the essence of something is so beautiful, and I understand that because I do believe that. But I think people, it's funny that you say it's frivolous. I think it's like this idea of manufacturing it now. It's like people have started to feel like they have to manufacture beauty in order for it to be different. Like in order to be considered beautiful, or a piece of art to be considered beautiful, it's like it has to be like it has to stand out. Like we've started to equate those two things to some extent, and I think that's caused people to like really just like, there's an extreme that people are at, or were for a while, around like what is beautiful art, or what is beautiful music.
without
I don't
going
I
into too much of a history lesson, there's a great moment in the novel The Hunchback of Notre Dame where the villain, he picks up a book off his desk and he points out the window to Notre Dame and he says, "This, the book, will kill that, the cathedral," because the printing press had given society, civilization, a much more convenient way to express itself rather than architecture. When it took centuries to build beautiful castles and cathedrals, now there was, the, the book. Now there was, writing, which was such a
mm,
much easier form of expression, that it was that argument that, now there was less of a need to have, grandiose, beautiful cathedrals and castles. And an extension of that is, the end of the Romantic era, how gorgeous and opulent everything was by the end of the 19th century, going into the 20th century, by the time World War One was over and World War Two was over, people were broken. The world was heartbroken. Like it wasn't, we couldn't just go to the opera and have pretty things. Like we knew we wanted to explore in art and literature and everything, like dark, broken, expressionist, horrible, nightmarish things because the world had been so broken. Not that there hadn't been, wars before that, but with, radio and television, everyone's collective consciousness was all sharing in the same, nightmare of war at the same time. So the whole world was like heartbroken. We couldn't just have pretty things anymore. We couldn't just go to the ball and go to the ballet anymore. So I think, I think there's so many people who, like you've talked about the College of Extraordinary Experiences, there are so many people who want to get away from the shallow scrolling and the garbage that's, no offense Netflix, but this, what Netflix used to be versus what it is now with like so many recycled kind of formulaic shows. Like people are desperate to have something more uh, satisfying experiences with more depth. So and not to say like every experience has to be beautiful, but the experience of when you recognize something that's beautiful, you think, wow, like that moment should make you feel more connected in the world and more grateful, not just like, oh, that's so pretty. It should be a deep feeling when you see something that's so beautiful, or that you are moved by it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such an interesting topic to explore that we're not going to explore on this podcast, but I do think what that made me think of is like the difference between art and experiences as mirroring the human condition versus art and experiences as a way to uplift the human condition. Like it's very different, right?
So opera comes from like the Greek theater, right? And when the Greeks did it, the whole community was involved. People didn't go to work. No one was expected to go to work on the day, that there was a Greek play. It was so important. It was such an essential part of the culture for everyone to go to the, to watch the show. It sounds so like a frivolous thing now. Oh, we're going to a show. But like for that culture, like the idea of art and beauty, like these things were so important. It was not a recreational thing. This stupid word in teaching of, that the arts and music are extracurricular activities. Like, it's a dismissive, oh, that's so these are extra. Like it didn't used to be that way.
Yeah. Mm. All right, well, next time you visit, that's our topic of conversation. I will send the agenda. Bryan, what have you learned about sustaining this multi-creative career? And I'm thinking like financially, emotionally, and creatively without burning out or feeling fragmented.
It's easy to feel burned out. It's so easy. Uh,
Mm.
for anyone in the creative field, especially people who have to. I would be better probably. I would if I used social media more, but that is like the easiest way to burn out. The like
Yeah.
madness of having to constantly produce. It's actually nice to be able to do different things. Overall, it's exhausting because it's harder to make progress when you're chasing so many rabbits at the same time. But it also is constantly refreshing. And whether it's just a different routine every week, or whether it's something like COVID that forces you to start over, like being able to start over is very refreshing.
Yeah. Hmm. All right, Bryan, what would you say to creatives who are feeling pressure to pick one thing? We all do it, right? We're all pressured to like pick the thing that's going to be your career, even though they feel like they feel very alive doing many things. How can they honor that pull without like all the chaos? And maybe it is that you have to accept the chaos. I don't know. What's your advice?
It, well, of course, it depends on all the other factors in your life. If you want to have family, if you really need to desperately, or if you have to support yourself, just paying the bills. You really have to have like three things to have success in any kind of creative field. I mean, you have to have the talent, you have to have the motivation, and you have to have connections. Like to only have two out of three is possible, but makes it so much harder. So if you have the talent and the motivation and the connections to do multiple things, you're lucky. What a gift. Also, which of those things will be, if you want to have a family, which of those things will be easiest for you to do and still have, a family, uh, because just to give you an example, in competitions, piano competitions or violin competitions or whatever it is, if it comes down to a guy and a girl, the judges will more often pick the guy as the winner just because they know it's so much more likely that the girl will have a family and will give up on the performing career just because, this is something that, it's exhausting. It will burn you out. And, so that's just something that, judges think of. Are we going to give the medal to this girl so she can stop playing next year if she gets pregnant? Like, that's,
Mm.
it's very difficult to pursue anything in the arts because it's so competitive and it's not unless you're in the top 10%, 5%, and especially for opera. So
You're doing such cool things right now, and you have so much cool talent. How can our audience support you, work with you, find your work? What are you working on that maybe you need a collaborator on? What's going on?
people want pictures. I'm always available for pictures. If people want to collaborate and start projects to do more stuff with theater or writing, or I can do all the creative things very well. I don't do the business things very well.
Yeah.
If there's anybody who's really good in finance and who's very good at budgeting and accounting and wants a creative project, like please contact me because there are so many, like, tragically, most of the people who do that in the arts are failed artists. So they're not good at management or finance. And that's why, artistic companies struggle because it's rare to find, it's rare to find the people who are talented and passionate, and good at the accounting and the finance, who have the patience to deal with, the crazy drama of the theater people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will share your links to your Instagram, your LinkedIn, and for our audience, if anyone would like to work with Bryan, I know I always want to work with Bryan, so we'll share that information. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Bryan.
You're an angel. This is fun. Thanks for listening.